Hello, my lovely listeners. Welcome back to Chapter 2 of The Devil You Bring Out in Me. I hope that you enjoy that first chapter, and I invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy Part 2.
I've been through heartaches, I've been to heaven. I've done my best and my worst, learned my lessons. No matter how hard my life would treat me, I'd always get right back up, never worry. 'Cause I got a million reasons to keep holding on. Yeah, I got all that it takes to win and overcome. What I got is just a feeling, but it's so strong. It goes on and on and on. There's something going on inside of me.
Pakou felt her breath quicken as she watched Graham's eyes hold a solid gaze. The man wasn't kidding. He was really warning her in his bed. This was way out of line for her, and she gathered up her purse, stood up, and cleared her throat. Mr. Wally, I don't think you understand what I meant when I said I wouldn't be calling you. I am not going to be getting into your bed at any time, and you can stop wishing. Have a good day. She walked around him and hurried to her car. When she arrived at the office the following morning, Ka was waiting for her at the front of the door and yanked her inside the room impatiently. Although Ka was being herself, it was annoying her, and it made her turn around on her heels, and her voice cracked as she began yelling. I don't have time for any of your sorry sob stories, Pakou cried. Ka blinked and went silent for a split second before she began speaking. What's wrong with you? She shoved her hands through her hair. He won't stop pursuing me. Who? The big boss, that's who. She flopped down on the chair and covered her face with her hands. I'm sorry, Ka. I didn't mean to go psycho on you. I'm just stressed. Laughing, Ka replied, Stressed because a guy wants you? She peeked through her fingers. Shut up. Ka came to sit down beside her. Listen, I know I bombard you with my sob stories, but today I was waiting for you to come because, there's something big that is happening around here in the office. It's big changes. She removed her hands and pouted her mouth. What? And just like that, her door opened, and the receptionist told them to head to the conference room for a big announcement. Come on, Ka said as she dragged her along. When they both arrived, everyone else was present, and Graham stood at the front with Channing beside him. This was big, Pakou thought as she settled into a chair beside Ka. Good morning, everyone. As you know, with the new merge, I am making some changes that will benefit the growth of the company. I have looked over the profiles of many of you during your time here as an employee, and I feel that some changes of growth are necessary to bring in the income to the company. With that said, where's Pakou? She perked up when her name was mentioned, and Ka shoved her out of her seat. She stumbled forward and cleared her throat. Right here, sir. Come here, he said with a gentle yet stern voice. She smiled and walked to where he stood, and he took her elbow gently, moving her alongside him. She turned and watched as Ka's eyes opened wide with terror, and then suddenly she felt nervous. I want to introduce you to the new VP of Communication, Pakou Lee. This threw her off guard, and she turned around to glare at him as he gave her the most incredible smile. She felt weak to her knees, and when she turned, she found Channing with an awkward smile. She felt her breath heavy, and the room broke out in applause. After much discussing things with the board members, I decided that if we wanted change, we needed to make the change by giving the dedicated employees a chance to grow from within. I looked through everyone's profile and settled on Pakou based on the sales she's brought in. Last year alone, she closed over 250,000 projects, and her communication is what we need to grow into the next chapter. And then he turned to her and said in a softer voice, She will be working directly under me. Pakou felt her knees weaken, and he must have noticed because he reached out and steadied her. Everyone clapped, and she turned 4 shades of red. Thank you, she muttered without emotion. That's all, everyone. Let us return and get some sales in. Everyone started to get up and move about, and Pakou saw Ka waiting for her. But to her surprise, Graham took her elbow and directed her toward his office. Ka only shrugged and walked off as Channing joined her. Once they were inside the safety of his closed door, she turned around and glared at him. "I don't agree with you," she said. "I want my position back." Laughing, he replied, "You can't. It's going to be given to someone else. You don't want to work under me?" She rolled her eyes. "You purposely did this, didn't you? For years, we've never needed a VP of communications, and now suddenly I'm working under you?" He smiled and leaned against the doorframe. "Well, if anything, it was you who was making it hard that I'm the boss. Now we're both in higher positions and we can spend the time together without anyone thinking otherwise. I think it's a win-win situation, Pakou." She shook her head in disbelief. "Wow, you can just snap your fingers and everything goes your way, doesn't it?" "Of course," he beamed. "That's the power of being the CEO." The day was spent moving from one corner of the wing to join Graham. It wasn't her choice, but she had no choice. Once she settled into the office right next to his, she realized that the job handed to her was something she could actually handle very well. Realizing how much communication was missing in the workforce, she took initiative to make sure everything was dotted and crossed throughout the day. He left her alone to do her work, but when time came to clock out, Pakou found him waiting for her out in the hall. Ka came walking through the hallway and a smile appeared on her face. "Dinner?" she asked. "Sorry," Graham said as he walked forward. "There's a gala tonight at the Union Depot. We're expected to attend." Frowning, Pakou said, "I didn't know anything about this gala." "Yeah, neither did I," Ka cried. Smiling, Graham replied, "Well, if anything, it was just sent to me over lunch. The hosts are million-dollar investors who are looking to redecorate their newest building. This is a good chance to introduce lavish decor to their choice of decorators." "Oh," Ka said with a grin. "I guess since Pakou is now the VP of Communications, she would need to be present." "Exactly right," Graham said. "I don't have anything to wear," Pakou said. He smiled and shoved his hands in his pockets. "Don't worry about that. I sent someone to get you a dress. It's already been delivered to your house, and I will pick you up in an hour." "How do you know my address? And the size I wear?" Smiling, he replied, "Oh, I know a lot more than that." He excused himself, and Pakou turned to find Ka with her mouth wide open and fanning herself. "The guy is a walking maniac," Pakou cried as she stared at the $4,000 dress lying on her bed. Ka was examining the beads on the gown and was whistling as she turned it over and about. "He's got taste, that's all I can say. Why can't I get a guy like him? I keep getting different versions of the same guy who broke me." "Ka, what am I going to say to those investors when I'm there? I'm beyond nervous because I've never attended such an event before." She smiled and touched a bead on the dress. "Oh, come on, Pakou, you're not giving yourself enough credit. When you are face to face with them, the woman I know who can't shut up will be front and center." "Ouch. That kind of hurts, Smiling, Ka reached over and took her hand. "Look, Pakou, stop being nervous. You know you are good at this, and I think Graham did the right thing by making you VP of Communications. You have always been able to close every single sale you pitched, and you are the top decorator at the company. It's about time you use your skills for something else. Trust yourself." Pakou didn't feel better after that pep talk. In fact, she felt even worse. How was she going to stand next to the CEO, who she found incredibly attractive, by the way, talk like a professional, and all the way avoid the burning sensations that kept creeping their way to her heart? She rubbed her eyes and took a deep breath. "I know I'm qualified for this job, Ka. I think it's the reality kicking in that's really happening that has me all up and down with my emotions. I mean, what if I can't do what everyone thinks I can? What if people think I slept my way to the top? Oh, good Lord, girl, you think way too much. Let's just focus on one thing at a time. And right now, it's about the gala. Come on, let's get dressed." The "I'll pick you up in an hour" statement rang true, and shortly after Ka left the house, Graham showed up in a black, smooth limo, where a driver came to open the door for her. She entered, but found herself alone. As the driver closed it and began driving toward the Union Depot, she was nervous. Didn't he say he was going to pick her up? And why was she alone? She put her hands together and realized they were sweating. Gross. Every time she was nervous, her hands sweat. And this was her first big gala. No one wanted to shake hands with a sweaty VP of communication. She opened her small clutch and took out her powder mirror to check herself. She had done very little makeup and kept her hair down and straight. She didn't want to show up feeling not like herself. The limo stopped, and the door opened to where she met Graham standing before her, dressed in a very expensive three-piece black Armani suit. The power of his gaze sent her almost toppling over as she managed to get out of the limo without slipping. He did a quick gaze over her, and a smile appeared on her face. "I knew you'd look beautiful in that dress," he whispered. "Come on, let's go." He didn't take her hand, rather, he put his on the small of her back and began guiding her toward the entrance. "I thought you were picking me up," Pakou said. "I planned to, but I had some last-minute things I needed to take care of. But we're both here now. Are you nervous?" "Don't I look it?" Shaking his head, he replied, "You look beautiful." He smiled at the two men standing guard at the entrance, and they slipped in. Pakou's heart thundered at how the Union was changed completely to look like a Gatsby-style place. So many were dressed in richly fine clothing, and everyone was talking amongst themselves. "Graham!" They both turned and saw a handsome older man walking toward them dressed in a blue suit. He had a pretty blonde beside him as he reached out and shook hands with him. "You're here! You're 3 scotches behind!" Then his eyes fell on Pakou. "And who is this lovely young woman?" "Parker, this is Pakou Lee, the new VP of Communications for Lavish Decor." He smiled and extended his hand out. "Hello, Miss Pakou. I'm Parker Soley, the VP of Greener Air. I'm pleased to meet you." Pakou smiled and took his hand. "Likewise." Then her eyes fell to the blonde. "And you are?" She made a face and left them as she hurried to the bar. Not understanding, she turned to find Parker's face bright red. "Forgive her. She's my Megan. She's a model, and, she's hungry," he said with a laugh, and excused himself to follow her. "He looks about 3 times her age," Pakou said as they began walking toward the tables. "He is 3 times her age. But when you got money like Parker and you're a hungry model like Megan, it works." They found their names on the table card and sat down. Right as the waiter passed by, Pakou reached out a hand to grab a wine glass when he stopped her, and the waiter walked past. "I can't drink?" she asked. Shaking his head, he replied, "No, not during events like these. You have to be of sound mind at all times." Laughing, she replied, "Says who?" "Says me," he answered with a stern gaze. "You do not know the amount of people who will try anything with you when you have alcohol in your body. Don't be the next victim, Pakou. Drink water." She rolled her eyes but picked up a glass of water on the table to drink. There were so many people here, and all of them were rich folks who didn't have to worry about a single goddamn thing in their life. "You must attend these a lot," she said. Nodding, he replied, "I do. But I mainly show up for a moment and then sneak out." "Then why do you come anyways?" He turned to her and smiled. "Because I like to see who big ballers are when it comes to giving. I didn't get to where I am being afraid." Soft music began playing, and she took another gulp of water when she heard someone call out his name. They both turned to find a gorgeous woman with red curls wearing a bright green evening gown walking toward them. "I thought that was you," she said with a smile. "Come on, I need to introduce you to someone." "I'll be right back," he whispered as he stood up, and the woman took him by the hand, leading him away. Pakou smirked and stopped the next waiter to grab a wine glass. She stood up from where she was sitting and walked to the back of the room where they hung photos for viewing. She was admiring the paintings of someone named Goo Ryder when she heard a man clearing his throat beside her. She turned, and a handsome man with silvery hair and deep blue eyes stared at her with a grand smile. "Hello," he said in a deep voice. "Are you a fan?" Pakou smiled and shrugged. "I'm still debating. I mean, he's obviously got the right technique going on. I like what he's done to the photos here. It's brilliant." "You think so?" "Yeah. What about you?" The man shrugged and crossed his arms. "I don't know. I think he could have used a lighter color, you know. The darker tone makes the painting kind of dull." Smiling, Pakou asked, "Are you an artist?" "I don't like to call myself that. I just say I'm a man with a vision." She smiled and extended her hand. "Ah, man of vision. I'm Pakou Lee." He took her hand and kissed her knuckles lightly. "Hello, Pakou Lee. I'm Goo Ryder." She opened her mouth in shock as he smiled and let her hand go. I'm sorry. I couldn't help but tease you a bit. Oh my God! Wow! Your work is amazing! She placed her hands together and instantly his eyes brightened. I have never had a conversation with anyone who was famous before. He smiled and shrugged his shoulders lightly. I'm not famous, really. I'm just me. But tell me about you. What brings you out here? I'm from Lavish Decor. She almost said decorator, and then remembered her new position. I'm the VP of Communications. Gu raised his eyebrows. Oh wow, a woman of talent, it seems. The music switched to a slow waltz, and he extended his hand. May I have this dance? You certainly may. Graham felt his head twirl in frustration as he brushed the hair strand that was falling over his eye. Tonight was supposed to be his night with Pakou, and yet here he was, stuck in an elevator with a woman who wore cheap perfume and had lipstick on her teeth. He recognized her right away, though. She was Eva Lang's personal assistant, and Eva was a force he didn't want to interfere with his night. If he were to backtrack and name all the terrible things done with Eva, he'd say he was a fool to have thought he loved her at one point in his life. There were so many things that had gone wrong with her, and love was the number one reason why he was a mess today. When he met Eva, she was a fresh college graduate wanting to make a name for herself, and he had just closed his first business transaction, bringing in his first $1 million. She was this vixen who was beautiful and seductive, but spoke like a Harvard student and dressed like a Sunday school girl. But inside the bedsheets, she was like another story. And yes, he had the time of his life getting to know that body of hers. But soon the fire died down when she earned merits in her workplace and gained entry to the top floor. This was before he gained access to a lot of things in his business life, and while she made it big, she soon forgot who was with her at the beginning. The fire and lust cooled off between them, and he came home to her packing her things and left without a word. Now here he was, going back to the past when the future was somewhere below waiting for him. The elevator doors opened and it revealed Eva standing there at the top wearing a very revealing black dress with her dark hair cut in a stylish bob. She wore so much rhinestone that she looked like she was in a diamond commercial. Eva, he said as the assistant got back into the elevator and the doors closed. It's been a long time. Smiling, she replied, Long time indeed, Graham. You look better than before. How are you? How is business? He stuck his hands in his pockets. Business is good, but I don't think you brought me all the way up here to listen to my credentials. She smiled and shrugged her thin shoulders. You're right. I didn't. You have something of mine, and I want it. Graham laughed as he thought a moment. I have something of yours? Whatever did you not take with you when you left me? I mean, you bought something that was supposed to be mine. Lavish decor. Ring a bell? Ah, so you brought me all the way up here to discuss why you're not the new owner and I suddenly am? More or less, she replied. Look, Eva, no matter what you think you can do or however you think you can threaten me, Lavish Decor is mine, and nothing you do or say will make me give it up. Her eyes turned dark. Name your terms. It's not for sale. He shook his head and turned around to go when what she said stopped him. You think your pretty little date will help stop me from getting my hands on it? Don't think I don't know who she is, Graham. A poor little decorator like her wouldn't stand a chance against me. So unless you wanted to cry her eyes out and run out like a fool, let's just agree on this here and now so we can save each other time and energy. He smiled. You think you have her figured out, don't you? She smirked. Yes, of course I do. Especially when I see her dancing with Gu Ryder. This got his attention, and he shifted his eyes to where, indeed, Pakou was in the arms of the twisted artist, but he controlled his emotions and pressed a button on the elevator. Why don't you come meet her and find out? He asked. When she stepped forward to join him, he stopped her. Take the stairs, why don't you? I'm allergic to petty women. He got in, and when the doors closed, he saw her angry eyes and gave her a smile. Once the elevator began to descend, his heartbeat quickened at the thought of Gu doing anything to Pakou. As soon as the doors opened, he rushed out and almost tripped over a woman waiting to use the lift. He pushed past the crowd and entered the dancing ballroom. She was laughing as he held her in his arms, and then to his surprise, Gu stopped the waiter and handed her a glass of wine. "Don't drink," Graham whispered. But to his disappointment, she lifted the glass up and downed the wine. The waiter took both glasses back with him as they continued dancing. He walked over just as the song ended, and Gu's eyes darkened when he came into view. "Graham," he said as Pakou's face blushed. "Good to see you. I was just talking to your VP of Communication here." "Really? What conversation requires you both to speak so closely to each other?" He didn't wait for an answer. Instead, he reached over and took her arm. "Pakou, let's go." "But the party is just beginning," Gu said. "And we're leaving." Just as he said that, Ava entered the crowd, and Gu's eyes lit up. Pakou's eyes scanned the woman up and down as Ava smiled and crossed her arms. "Why, Graham, are you so adamant on taking her with you? Are you afraid we will spill all your dirty secrets to her?" Eva asked. Pakou smiled and extended her hand. "And you are?" Eva smirked and didn't take the hand that was offered. "I'm someone you are not qualified to know. Decorators and companies are not even allowed to attend galas as this. Did you get Graham to bend backwards for you?" Before Graham could respond, Pakou stepped forward and smiled. "I believe you and I have not yet met before, so you do not know who I am. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Pakou, Lavish Decor's VP of Communications." Ava's face drained of color. "VP of Communications?" She turned to look at Graham, and he simply just shrugged. And then she turned around to glare at Pakou. "How are you qualified for this?" Shrugging, Pakou replied, "Perhaps it's my master's in finance, or my master's in art, or perhaps it's that I closed 250,000 sales on my own within a time frame of a year, and brought our company close to 8 million revenue. Take your pick." Smiling, Graham replied, "Pakou, meet Ava Lang, CEO of Joint Conditions." Pakou smiled as she walked to where Graham stood. "Joint Conditions? I heard of you and your company before. Weren't you bidding for Lavish Decor?" Ava smiled as she walked to Gu and slipped her arm around his. "Did you have a nice time dancing with my date?" Pakou's face paled, and then she picked herself up again, quite fast. "Your date has excellent dancing skills, and if you stay closer to him, you'd actually find that out for yourself." And then she turned to him. "Graham, we were leaving?" "Leaving," he replied. He took her hand, and the two of them walked out together as he heard Eva's long breath of anger behind him. Once inside the limo, Pakou felt her head spinning, and she remembered why. She had been drinking even when he told her not to. But where had he disappeared to anyways? Once he slipped in beside her, she turned and glared at him. "Where the hell did you disappear to?" she asked. He turned to look at her. "I told you not to drink." Shocked that he knew, she cleared her throat and looked straight ahead. "This isn't about me. It's about you leaving me stranded." "I didn't leave you stranded. I had to take care of something, and I said I would be right back." "Yeah, right back is 5 minutes. You were gone for an entire waltz song and more. Next time, if you plan on leaving me to fend for myself like that, then don't bring me." "I didn't. I went upstairs to clear things with Ava." She ran her hands through her hair. "Who the hell is she anyways? She sounds like she knows you in between the sheets and inside the office." When he didn't answer, Pakou turned to find him looking at her with dark eyes. "Oh my God, she does know you between the sheets and inside the office. How could I have missed it? It's not what you think. We were lovers long before we became rival enemies in the business room." "How can you do that, Graham? Sleep with someone and then face them in the boardroom the following morning?" He ran a hand through his hair. "It's not like that. She wasn't always this way. Money got to her and she suddenly turned dark overnight. One reason why I broke the relationship off." Pakou thought about Gu, and then she turned to him. "Is she dating Gu?" "She dates anything with legs and a beard." She made a face, and he laughed. "Now, why did you drink when I asked you not to?" She shut her eyes. "I regret it now. I get it. I didn't before. I've learned my lesson, Graham. Places like these have your rival enemies walking everywhere. It's best to walk in and out with a clear, focused mind." He patted her hand. "You learn fast." "Not fast enough." She yawned and leaned back in the seat, her eyes suddenly very heavy. She shifted and then felt his body move closer to her, his shoulder against her head. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Giving you more lessons to learn." "And what lesson is this?" "This is called, be quiet and let me hold you." She moved to get away from him, and his hand came to hold her down. And then he inched even closer to her and leaned down until his lips were against her ear. "Why do you defy me, Pakou? You know you want me just as much. Why are you forcing yourself to be in pain when all I can give you is pleasure? Who hurt you? Who made you run from feelings that are supposed to be warm?" he whispered. Suddenly, Justin's face entered her mind, and tears filled her eyes. She shoved him away and covered her face with her hands. The limo stopped suddenly, and she looked up to find that they were at her house. She wiped her eyes, unafraid now to smear her makeup, and pushed the door open. When she made it out, she lowered her head to look at him. "Mr. Wally, thank you for sending me home. I will see you in the office tomorrow morning." She slammed the door shut and ran up the stairs, eager to make it inside her home before the tears exploded. Just as she got her doorknob to turn, a voice from the past called out her name. Turning around, she saw Justin making his way toward her, dressed in a wrinkled white button-down shirt and a pair of jeans that looked to be a few days old. His eyes were bright red, and it was clear he was drunk. Her eyes moved to the limo that was still parked there, and she watched as the door opened and Graham got out. He walked past a staggering Justin and took the keys from her hands. When he reached to push the door open, Justin called out her name again. "Who is this bum?" Justin asked in a low voice. "Leave me alone," Pakou said with a shaking tone. He laughed as he brushed his hair back with his hand and cleared his throat. "I'm asking you, who is this bum?" "Me?" Graham asked as he stepped down to stand before her. "Are you calling me a bum?" Laughing, Justin replied, "There's only you and I, pal, and it ain't me, so it's for sure you." "Oh, wow. I hadn't noticed that. I suppose from afar the world would mistake me to be a bum. Me, who arrived in a sleek limo. Me, who is wearing a three-piece Armani suit. Me, whose eyes are clear and focused." Justin pointed a finger at him. "Shut up. Shut up. What are you doing here? Pakou belongs to me. She's mine. What makes you think you can take her away from me?" "Leave him," Pakou whispered. "He's drunk." And just like that, Justin's eyes rolled in the back of his head and he dropped like a swatted fly to the ground. "Don't worry. I'll have the driver take him to a hotel nearby." Pakou watched as he lifted Justin up over his shoulder and put him into the limo. After instructions, he came back to meet up with her as the limo drove off. "Thank you. I think I would have been able to send him off by myself," she said. He raised his eyebrows. "An insult and a compliment in one sentence? Wow, I'm impressed." Pakou shook her head in regret. "I'm sorry. Anyways, thank you. I'll call you a cab and you can go home." He stepped up toward her and touched her hand. "Go in. My driver will be back to pick me up. Go in." Thank you." He smiled and reached out a finger to touch her chin. "Anytime." Thank you for tuning in. Chapter 3 will be out shortly.
I've been through heartaches, I've been to heaven. I've done my best and my worst, learned my lessons. No matter how hard my life would treat me, I'd always get right back up, never worry. 'Cause I got a million reasons to keep holding on. Yeah, I got all that it takes to win and overcome. What I got is just a feeling, but it's oh so strong. It goes on and on, on and on. There's something going on inside of me. I feel it growing stronger every beat. I never just believe in what I see, 'cause I can feel the energy. feel so